Talking about regardless of what the label is for a higher purpose, whatever you aspire to, and that's not like what you've decided that you're going to do in life based on pressures of, I mean, there's only two things in life: love-based or fear-based decisions and actions. And a lot of our actions in life start to become fear-based fairly early on because of the other people around us that are making fear-based decisions. And not entirely and not knowingly, but that's just kind of like the human experience, like working to embrace love-based decisions in this environment, society, and culture that is intentionally trying to prevent that or make it harder so that, we want to buy things basically in all these different ways, right? So the certain technologies that I believe are possessed at the upper echelon of not only like the government, but just corporations, things that have been discovered, reverse engineered from other places, we'll say, that is not available to us because it would change the economy. Well, no, it would change our health. This is a huge tangent. Things that would be able to heal us would take away the market of big pharma, that type of thing. And there are a lot of other ways that power and control would be lessened over the masses if these types of things were released. But there are other things that don't have to do with any type of, invention or technology or advancement. It's all about, it's this painting that I'm working on, the pineal gland, the brain, decalcification of the pineal gland. Most people have a calcified pineal gland, and it's interesting. It's like an evolutionary thing. And like, what does that mean? It's like there's minerals or like a blockage around it so that there are pathways that your brain would take to function in certain ways, but it can't go through that avenue because that part of the brain isn't, that gland, the pineal gland, isn't decalcified. And there's a lot of suggested ways that you could do that, but and I don't know much about that. But technology, for instance, that I believe already exists. A lot of my information about medical advancements and reverse engineering technology from extraterrestrial civilizations and whatnot comes from watching interviews with Emery Smith and David Wilcock, or George Norrie and Emery Smith on Gaia, in a series called Cosmic Disclosure. And Emery Smith was in the surgical technology division of secret military operations, where he started at a young age, this is late 80s, early 90s, and then worked his way up and was introduced to a lot of really far out things that the United States and other governments and powerful corporations around the world, mostly American, I guess, and I mean, he was working for the American military, so but have had access to and are developing for longer than we can even comprehend. And it's even back then, the stuff in the late 80s, early 90s is so far beyond the technology that we have today in 2021, which is wild. Back to the idea of living a divinely guided life and seeing it from a scientific lens. So aspiring to that higher purpose, in order to do that, you're optimizing your frequencies in your vessel. So it kind of also comes back down to mind, body, and spirit. Why is there so much traffic today? Why is there so much traffic on 376? Excuse my nasally sound. I'm very congested. When you are... Okay, so I guess this is actually going to be an explanation about why healing is important. So every decision that you make, whether you know it or not, is a product of all of the things that you've come to believe about how to act and how you feel about yourself, therefore how you feel about others. It's where judgment comes in. So certain things that affected us as soon as we came into the world kind of shape us as a person, and we come to hold certain beliefs, and certain things that happened to us that weren't good, we don't forgive other people for, or we don't forgive ourselves for, or a little bit of both. And then that can subtly be the background on a stage, like the set, the equipment of a set. I'm thinking about a play. If the play is your life, what's on your stage? What's on your set? Is it like little dynamics from the ways that you related to people in terms of like friendships when you were younger? Does it have to do with your parents? It always does for everybody, just because those are the foundational roles of caregiving and that type of thing. And I see the human experience as something that is crafted. This is also where like karma may come in. Like, what are the forces that determine what's on somebody's stage, these influences that create our personality and whatnot? That's like a karmic wheel. And there's an idea in this like machine of all the dimensions that exist in this universe, which like, that's not a theory. There are many higher dimensions. There are many beings in higher dimensions that work with us on earth, that are guiding us, that are preventing some of the darker forces that I mentioned earlier to conduct certain things. Super vague, but that's not what I want to talk about. And we as spirits come into this lower dimension, the 3D reality, where all of these things are possible. So having a form, having a family, being able to use these 5 senses, these things are not the way it is in other dimensions, which make it very hard for us to understand what that's like, because we relate everything to the way that we see the world, and this is the only world that we see, unless you are working in meditative states and have experiences in meditation or in dreams where you are leaving your body, or where you're able to contact other beings, or work in channel, receiving guidance and information from higher dimensional entities, or your spirit guides. Everybody has spirit guides. Everybody has ancestors. Even if you don't know the people that came before you in your lineage, they exist. You know, you didn't just come out of 2 parents or something that didn't have any roots into the grand fabric of the quilt of humanity. So there's so much more going on that constitutes this stage of our lives that we are existing on. And we think, because we have kind of like, it's the self, it's the I, it's the ego, this idea that like, I'm just making my decisions because this is what I want, and this is how I like to do things, and this is what feels good. But if certain things are on the stage that affect what you think feels good, then you are not necessarily operating from, like, I would say, like, I want to call it like a 0 point, like the space of love, because the ego is separateness, which is the illusion, and a clear and empty stage where you can decide what you put on it would be operating from love. But it's also trying to think about it in a non-judgmental way. It's fine that there's stuff on everybody's stage because we are humans and this is what we're doing. But so the idea that before we come into this 3D reality, because we are greater than the lives that we lead on Earth, I wish I could say what his name was. It was like an Instagram ad for a master class that I saw, and some guy was like, I'll put his name in a reference, I'll tag it or whatever when I figure it out, but he said, we think our spirit is in our body, but our body is in our spirit. That's very true. And also we think our lives are on Earth, but they are eternal, and we just choose to come and do this, right? And it's very hard for our intellectual minds to wrap around that unless you're kind of able to have other experiences that push the borders of this reality. Think Jim Carrey in The Truman Show. Like, you kind of go to the farthest reaches of where the sky meets the sea, and it's like a paper background, and you punch a hole in it and you go outside of it. Like, if you don't have experiences that are pushing that boundary out and showing you other places or sensations, right? Because it's not just thinking about like, oh, I crawled through a hole when I was dreaming and then there was a place that looked like Mars. Like, no, it's bodily too. It's mind, body, spirit. It's not about thinking about different things. It's about feeling things in a different way. And a lot of energy work is very subtle sensations. And like, that's been a huge part of my work. I don't know why I'm saying that. I would say that that's a piece that's come in a little bit more recently, because I'm a very mental person. I'm a very over-analytical thinker. And I've learned to temper that with being still. And a lot of that has to do with the stillness that I can find in the body. Because I know a lot of people can relate to this. It's very hard to turn the mind off, and it's very hard to turn kind of an automatic thought stream off around what we think about everything that's happening around us, especially with the way that things have shifted from 2020 into 2021. So if there's not a context in your consciousness for the other things that are at play in these shifts, it can be hard not to jump into very judgmental ways of thinking about things. So beyond these lives that we're leading, we're choosing our parents and kind of designing this entire life, choosing our family network, choosing the path that we're going to lead so that we can grow the most. We want to expand in certain ways and fulfill to tie it back to like the faith thing, Philippians 2:13 is I don't even know what you call that, like a verse, a Bible verse. It's in the Genesis or the book, the Bible. And for it is God who works through you to fulfill his good purpose. And I feel like a lot of people who don't associate themselves with a certain religion, or Christianity or Catholicism, would say, which by the way, I don't. I was not raised religious, but I think it's very important to use these terms and talk about how it's all the same thing with different terms. And they're very, very powerful terms, because if you think about all the various different times that what are they called again? I'm blanking. Verse? Bible thing? What is the word for that? How many times throughout history, the history of humanity, that's been said, or the word God, right? Or just all of it. It's very powerful, because words have meaning. Spelling, casting spells, words. Huge tool for us to change energy and project energy. Be very intentional with the way that you use your words. It is the idea that you are source energy. You are God. It is God who works through you in this life that you've chosen and designed for yourself. If you start to open your eyes to the things that are happening to you as never bad nor good, just experiences to grow and expand and continue to fulfill that purpose. And it's not like, oh, there's some God over me who's trying to get me to do things. No, it's you. You are the one that's wanting these things, because you've come to do this. And if you don't like what's going on, that's what in the words of Abraham Hicks, the clouds are just so beautiful. They're like the spirally helix of cloud up there. It reminds me of one of those long rainbow spiral lollipops that you would get at the zoo when you were young. All right, that's what I did. Oh yeah, in the words of Abraham Hicks, it's all about contrast. So if you're going through a dark night of the soul where things are stripped away, things that you used to rely on in your life, be it realities, like certain frames of thinking, ways of making sense of things, the real things in your life, like jobs, relationships, friendships. If you are enduring loss or the side of the spectrum that is negative, then you are having a deep understanding of what could be possible on the other side. Because when we look at things that we don't want, it's not about saying like, so that's bad. It's about saying, so how can I get what I want if this is not it? And what do I want if this is not it? And contrast is like, think about that yin and yang, or I'm almost seeing, to make a really contemporary techie kid phone analogy, I was thinking about this the other day too. I see a circle that's just split in half, like a half moon, but it's like the contrast, like if you're gonna edit a photo. I love actually so many different technology or interface related, user experience related analogies about spirituality, because technology has given us so much control over how we edit our photos or audios or videos or whatever it is, words even, it's like this place where we can take the matter of life, the words, the pictures, the stuff, the moving images, the information, and edit it. So there's a lot of analogies that I like in my tattoos, which are all about little tools that I can use to remind myself of how to live my life from this spiritually. Like, just check that cloud out. It's beautiful. There's a pause sign, right, that we would associate with pausing a song. Pause, 2 little lines, 2 little bars. That icon is so... This is the icons too of modern day time, because thinking about like hieroglyphs, those were the icons of ancient times in one culture. But these are our hieroglyphs and we don't even realize it. So the pause symbol for me was all about breathing and pausing, because when I was younger, those initials B and P stood for binge and purge, because I was severely bulimic at one point and journaling about it to express how challenging my life was and how like scared I was that I couldn't get out of this series of behaviors that dominated my life and ended up having me leave school and everything. And so I got the letters B and P tattooed with the pause sign, because I was kind of trying to like transmute or alchemize, and those letters were just like I would see them and it was like this haunting thing, but I was the one who was writing them and I was the one who was doing it. So it was this torturesome routine of not being able to change, and this is how I started to change it. And breathing and pausing is never a bad thing. Never a bad thing. It is always something that will help and change the energy of the moment. And like that, I have another one on my left wrist, which is a cursor, like a mouse, like that little arrow on the computer. And that is for attention, and it's about awareness, and it's about knowing where your attention or your awareness is. And you think of your mind with this cursor as a computer screen or tablet or whatever you want. No, because that doesn't have a cursor. So a computer screen. And you see all of like, maybe there's like a memories folder on the desktop. Maybe there's a future one. You're worrying about the future. You're worrying about the past, whatever. All of the different files that you have in this mind of yours. That's the computer screen. The cursor. Oh, and I love the analogy too, because a folder of past memories, you could click on it, and then inside there's all these other folders like teen years or whatever. And that cursor can, on my computer, if I go up into the corner, hot corners, it activates my screensaver. And then, so the cursor can go away. The attention can just kind of dissolve. And then there's the flurry background screensaver. Like, it just helps you reassume control. There's another quote that I would like to give credit to whoever said this, but it is, we can't fully understand something until we have the right metaphor to understand it with. I'm a strong believer in that. So going back to the contrast icon. So the contrast icon being this analogy for a way to help yourself through times that are unfavorable, because it's very easy to spiral. Isn't it interesting that when things are not going well, it's easy for us to spiral, but when things are going positively, we don't lean into it in the same way. It's like, why can't we take a good thing and spiral up? Like a downward spiral is like a mental worry spiral. Very easy to have things escalate, making a mountain out of a molehill. But when things are good, I would say we should lean into the same practice. We should see how far up we can take that, see how optimistically we can start thinking when one seed of thing blooms. And this is all about conscious manifestation too, being able to recognize that we are making progress. I think it's cultural, but also just a little bit more of that human tendency to not see how much we have, definitely cultural, how much we have, and then allow it to be the launching point, the stepping stone into more gratitude and therefore more positivity. And I think instant gratification makes it very difficult to talk about or have people like latch on to the practice of gratitude or meditation on a daily basis, because it's like, yeah, I just couldn't really get into that. Or, something that I'll never forget is like when one of my friends said to me, it's so cool that you have like time to do that spirituality stuff in your life, and that's like a big part of your life. And I totally understand that comment. I understand how so many people probably feel that way, but it's like, it isn't a part of my life, it is my life. For so long it was a part of my life, and the shift that I always wanted, and I didn't know what I wanted the shift to be, but I knew that I was shifting into something, and I became very, very intentional and pretty obsessed with figuring out what it is that I wanted to see and understand. And it's that I never stop thinking about it. I eat, sleep, breathe, go to bed, wake up, and I try to be conscious and think about what it is I want in life, my highest goals, and how every action is going to lead me there. And it's kind of this like, for me, for a long time, was this ideal way of living where it's like, well, I just can't do that. That's not realistic. I have all these other things that I have to worry about and think about during the day, and I can't just wake up and daydream. But it's not like that. All of the real things in your life that you need to address and be present for, you can be present for them through the eyes of this wise observer that is trying to transmute the things that you would typically or ordinarily be reactive about or triggered by into that learning experience. Again, taking that contrasty icon and being like, okay, this one's on the shade of things I don't like, but how can I, what would I like, what would the Dalai Lama do? Not what would Jesus do? What would the Dalai Lama do? If you ever like see him just sitting there, just so happy, so peaceful, he's all about like comfort and that loving, unconditional loving energy. And my grievances, being offended and reactionary about something is all about you thinking you have something to lose or something to be offended by. And there are a million things to be upset about and offended by in the world today. But at the end of the day, the way that they are helped and fixed is by transmuting all of that and creating more space for love and light. And right, so it sounds like, oh, love and light is gonna fix it. And people are like, that's not like practical. That's not a good solution. And it's like, it is. We create this space and we anchor this light, and we physically are changing the DNA of our bodies and our, sorry, someone was staring at me. I got thrown off. Especially right now with the way the planets, the way that 2021 has brought us into this new energy. And if you've been hearing that and you don't know what it means, it's a very, very literal thing. There are solar flares and winds and things and these new light codes, light activations streaming down to our planet, touching you, just like the sun. Without it, none of the plants would grow. We are the same way. We would not be alive without the sun. And who are we to think that the other planets, it's not a star beaming light down upon us, but of course their motion affects us and we feel that. And it's not as visible or proven, or, astrology is like, no, that's just something that we used to be in like the section of like the magazine or of course astrology has taken off and has gotten a lot more merit, but it's still very like pop culture-y and like co-star type of thing, like a social thing almost, but it is the first science almost, in my opinion. And these light codes, they come in and we don't necessarily feel, it doesn't like hit you and you're like, oh, now I get it, and now I feel different. Like, it can be physically exhausting and draining and intense, which I think it has been for months now. And I think it's important to talk about this stuff. I think it's important. I'll speak from my experience. It's been very, very, very important for me to follow different people who talk about that, because without those people's testimonies and understandings of what's going on, I would be like, ugh, why can't I have a little bit more energy? Why am I feeling, what is this headache about? And it's like, it's this. That's really validating and useful. And it helps me persevere and be like, I need to take care of myself. It's okay to rest on this day. It's not about me and my inadequacies. I shouldn't be more energized. I should just honor the energy that I do have and know that my body is going through a lot. My DNA is changing. We have, our cells, like, it's just this crystalline micro level that is activated by the biggest planets in the galaxy and like beyond to the universe. And this ties in to quantum entanglement. So on the subatomic level, electrons in the atom, they did experiments. Einstein and Niels Bohr did experiments to see that two separate atoms had electrons, where if you did something to this one over here, the same thing would happen to this one over here. And Einstein ended up calling it spooky actions at a distance, and he was not really down with it. And he said that it was not something that was active in the real world because he couldn't rationalize, and nobody could, why it was happening. But Niels Bohr took the other side and said that it was something that happened in the natural world. And then there was a man who kind of followed them. A lot of people picked up and put down that theory over time. And we've never honestly fully, like, quantum physics is so beautiful because it's full of question marks still. But I think that the way to fill in the blanks there is to think about things in terms of spirituality and then kind of link up all these metaphors. And that's a lot about what my work has been about and will continue to be about. Hopefully in a more vocal, verbal, shareable way, like this video. But John Clauser, I believe, what did he do? He did another test. He did another test with subatomic particles where he eventually sided with Bohr. The idea is that one electron, this does happen in the natural world, and an electron in my being, in one of my atoms, in one of my like trillions of atoms or however many comprise my being, could change and shift, and it would affect the electron of a star at the far reaches of our universe or galaxy, which is just remarkable. And it goes to show you that, or helps you to consider that time and space are illusory, and that this being that we perceive ourselves is actually all of matter. Because again, this 3D reality is just the 3D. And the other dimensions, the matter is a lot more versatile and fluid. The most recent painting that I did, Light Being, it's about, so these higher dimensional beings, they can present themselves in whatever form they choose, really, and certain archetypal images, like these forms that they take, benevolent beings, angels that they take, or the gods of ancient cultures, these forms are the forms that they took to have this guiding presence in the history of humanity. But when you think about your actions and what you're doing, if you think about what you could do at the scientific level, the physical level, by the way, your thoughts and your energy is physical too, could change something so far away off of this planet, then it helps you feel a little bit more confident in knowing that, one day at a time, I'm doing the right thing. I have good intentions. No one needs to know about what I'm doing because I am aligned with my purpose, and that's enough for me for now. I mean, that's where I've been at for a long time, but I'm really excited about where I'm at right now. I gotta go get my nails done. The first people to really be excited by the quantum entanglement that I mentioned earlier with, Bohr and Einstein, but then John Clauser a few decades later, was a group in San Francisco called the Fundamental Physics Group, and they spelled physics with an F, and they were fully psychedelic experimental psychedelic hippies. You are not passing me. Didn't think so. Kia. I'm a good driver. And so this group was keen on linking Eastern mysticism with the entanglement, and they didn't really succeed in fully proving anything, but I think that's kind of like, I'm trying to carry on their legacy, or, I think a lot of people are. I think it's very common these days to see spirituality linked with a side of quantum, whatever it be. And I think because the history of what's been discovered is still full of question marks, it can be a little not here nor there when people bring it into like today's discussions. I mean, it's hard to like fully connect it, but like I feel like the simpler and the more direct the comparisons are, the more effective it is. And the more that I learn about physics, the clearer it becomes that there is an inexplicable link. So, back to talking about everyday's actions being aligned with the higher power. And also using the stage analogy again. So, the stage being the influencing factors in your life, and kind of us thinking that we just choose things because of the way that we prefer things, which is, there's truth to that, right? Because part of that's intuition. It's like, I want and like certain things because of my intuition guiding me to choose those things. But I think that feels different than being on a sort of autopilot with your consciousness and the way that you make decisions. And if you just, it's really simple to try to like tune into that and be like, well, what is this decision about? I feel like that it's fairly easy to tell, and it's like a slight little muscle of training and just asking the question again and again, and then realizing, because I feel like it's also very possible to tell ourselves like, oh yeah, this is my intuition, like I'm being guided, but it may not be. It may be something that you're relying on, like a type of thinking or a behavior or a vice that you're relying on, but you're kind of pretending to yourself that is necessary. But you wouldn't be pretending to be drawn to anything that you're not authentically drawn to unless you were protecting yourself from one of those things on the stage that is sub-functioning in the grander scheme of your behavior. So that's why healing is important. It's all about addressing the reason for the motives, and when it's subconscious, it's all about our conditioning, but when you're protecting yourself from something that you would then have to like look at, I think it's like threatening to the ego again. It's like we are afraid to consider, it's the shadow work, shadow self. Makes me think of the moon card in tarot, like what is in the shadows will be brought to the surface. And the moon is a very like intuitive and feminine card, and like those subtle energies again. But that's how you clear the stage, I think. It's like asking, going into the process on a daily basis, big decisions, small decisions, but being like, is this truly intuition and like what makes me happy and what I want, or is it something that I'm choosing because I think I should be choosing it, or because I'm choosing it out of like, I think about substances for me. And like the past 3 months has been a complete detoxification and purification of my vessel in a way that I have not experienced in years. And it was like a light switch. Like I've been really trying to stop drinking so much for a very long time and have had a hard time with self-control in that area. And January comes and I did a full month of sobriety, and it ended up being a lot easier than I thought. Not easy, but easier than I thought. And with that, I just kind of kicked coffee out. And I mean like every day drinking, everyday coffee. I stopped doing that. I mean, no alcohol was consumed during January, but much less coffee was consumed in January. And since then, this thing that for years was kind of this thwarting aspect to how I saw, and I definitely judged myself for my inability to change the behavior. And I was, not actively struggling so much anymore as I did years ago with it, but just kind of still like, I should change that, which I think is relatable. Like, I should do a little better with the way that you don't need to be drinking this much. I think quarantine affected it too for people. Like, why not? Like, I think of like memes of like one glass is just like, and then you just pour the whole bottle in or something. But, especially because I live alone and like, there's no reason. But the detoxification of the body is a really good way to be more aligned with the soul's and heart's desires in an authentic way, because if there is shifts in frequencies and vibrations, sorry, there's some very firm braking going on behind me that made me nervous. I said this in another video, give the spirit the most optimized chance to speak through your body by caring for your body. And we are predisposed in this world to kind of have a hard time doing that, just because we have no idea what's coming out of like cell phone towers and everything. Like the electromagnetic frequencies that are in the world, I don't believe are optimized to help us vibrate at a high frequency. I think if anything, they're trying to suppress this like free evolution of human consciousness that is inevitable and is happening and will happen and will continue to happen. But also the foods we eat, the content that we consume, the curation of popular media and that type of thing is all, I think, designed to be, even down to like the subtleties of like taste and like influencing how we want to design our own lives. Which again brings back in the aptness of comparisons and metaphors around technology, because it's like we can edit our lives as the conscious observer and as the conscious observer and participant in your life who's trying to remove the things that hold you back, be it a habit, a vice, or a way of thinking. A lot of these, by the way, we're not aware of. They come up after you do the first layer, and then there's more and there's more. And sometimes that's discouraging, but also that's life, and that's exciting because you know that there's always going to be more, but it's joyful, or it could be, to kind of like peel back these layers and feel better as you go about resonating more deeply with who you are, why you came into this physical form at this time, which is profound. Anybody who has ears to listen to this has come here at this time to be a part of the shift in human consciousness, which is exponential and will continue to be. It's kind of like a remembering, but I think when people say to me, when I've read or heard people say like, you're remembering who you are, I don't know if that fully resonates with me, because it's not something that I forgot, because that doesn't resonate, the wording around it. So the way that I like to think of it is like it's almost like when you have a dream and you wake up and you kind of remember it? Like, you remember the feeling of it, and it's almost like when you turn your head in a certain way in the middle of the day, it's like, God, there's that like flash again of that sensation that was linked up with these like people and these ideas and this motion I was doing in my dream last night, like that whole visceral involvement in something. So the closer that I get, the more layers that I peel back to understanding myself through my experience, and switching over from this life of autopilot and almost like victimization, ego-based living, like not understanding why things are happening, to allowing and flowing and trusting. Trust in what we don't know. It's very difficult, but having trust that everything is unfolding for a reason, that I'm allowed to be disappointed, sad, angry, upset, frustrated, but that those emotions as well are natural reactions to what I'm experiencing, functioning for me. I'm moving through the experiences that are being presented to me in a healthy way, and that's all functioning for my spiral ascension, because the idea that also brings up now tarot, Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune, you can't stop the Wheel of Fortune. It's always turning. Sometimes you're down, sometimes you're up, but that's why it's a spiral ascension. You're always having these patterns or these feelings at a higher vibration. That is, I think, if you're doing the work. And so another thing that I feel like has changed for me in the last 3 months with the new energies is, I used to see mind, body, spirit as a triangle, mind, body, spirit, and I would live my life not intentionally, but it was as if I was always going from one point. I would be like really mind for a while, like a few months of like research and not working out and just like fully in that mental space, and then I'd swing over and be like, I'm gonna get fit again and do that, but like then not be doing the research and not be doing the, and then spirit is like a whole other kind of like the access of what is beyond this reality through meditation. Or I think it's really important to understand that meditation isn't just going and sitting on a pillow and closing your eyes and that stereotypical meditation practice. My meditation practice is, I do it when I'm driving, I do it when I'm drawing. In fact, I don't have a whole lot of success except for when I'm falling asleep at night in bed and the idea is to be still with my eyes closed, breathing. That classic form, that's not my way. If I'm meditating during the day, my eyes are open, I'm asking questions out loud, I'm writing, I'm connecting to the quiet space within me, but I'm allowing what comes up to be expressed through me with a pen. And I don't necessarily think it's channeling, because channeling is different when I'm trying to move information from higher dimensions out into this realm so that I can understand it too. So things I don't know, I'm trying to bring in. A lot of that, though, is presented to me in visions, which is why I paint the things that I paint. But I do, in this meditative practice, just affirmations, a lot of affirmations, affirming my own existence. And for anybody who's a dissenter or somebody who's skeptical of the power of affirmations, I'll just go back to the power of words again, and how I said before, like, to use, even if you're not interested in biblical references or anything like that, certain verses, or I still can't remember what those things are called, scripture passages, what are those called? The power of them is kind of in the repetition of them and the ways that they've been used over time. And so over time, in your brain, in the neural pathways of how you understand words, even if you say something to yourself like, I am strong, I am powerful, and you're like, yeah, like, I believe that, but like, it's not a big deal or something, or like, I don't believe it, or whatever it may be, you don't have a immediate reaction, it doesn't make you feel a certain way, like, that's fine. Your brain reacts to those words, particularly in your own handwriting, and particularly the connection of your brain holding a pen, writing something on paper, right? Knowing what the letters, knowing how to write a letter and doing that repeated action ingrains things more than typing, and that's kind of been lost in this technological era as well. I think it's very important to create a dialogue with yourself through your handwriting and written work, whatever it may be, doodle or handwriting, which isn't everybody's way, but it's definitely been my way over time, and I would recommend it, especially if you're averse to the classic form of meditation, or if you've tried it and been like, this isn't for me, my mind doesn't settle, I get almost anxious in the antsiness of the attempt, which I think is relatable because I hear people say that, and I also have it. And honestly, I feel like for a long time I was like, no, I do that kind of meditation, but like I don't. I'm always doing a little bit of something else to give myself the focus. Like it's almost like fire gazing at a candle. Like you want to have something there, or else the ineffable truth of the present moment, where you sink into that space where you're like, oh yeah, time doesn't exist. I'm just a brief wafer of a sliver of rainbow existing in this sea of energy. Like to tune into that without anything to call it. It's like, how do you focus on a point in a void? I think that's like super high level monk meditation. And so it's very good to have a point of attraction for that work. But circling back to what I was talking about with the triangle, mind, body, and spirit, we want to live in balance. And somebody said to me recently, just throw out the idea of balance, because it's all about a recipe and kind of like adding in the things that work. And I'm not sure if I fully agree with throw out the idea of balance, because I think the word, it's this aspirational thing, this almost like, if we see it as this unattainable thing where it's like, well, I won't ever achieve full balance, then that's a self-imposed limitation. I do believe that we can achieve balance in our lives, especially between mind, body, and spirit, if we think about it in that way and know that it's not always going to look the same. Week to week, it might not always look the same. It's very challenging to create a routine that will just stick and be your routine. That's probably not how it's going to be. It'll be, especially with these high frequency energies activating us on Earth right now, if we go through a portal, an energetic portal, like the numerology of the dates, think like Mayan calendar or whatever, the way the ancients understood and designed the numbers around everything, like that's all man-made, the numbers of it, but it's very, very incredible when you think about sacred geometries and the fact that these numbers are correlating with these things in the planets, etc., etc. There might be times where living a life of balance looks like 2 days of inactivity and restoration and giving yourself permission. And that's balancing you out. Because if you don't understand, if you think that you have to do this for that amount of time, and then you go over there and you're active, and then you're doing that, and like you do all these things in turn, you're not even seeing where the scales are currently at, which is intuitive. Seeing where the scales are at is something that nobody can do for you, because they cannot feel. Well, that's not true. I think healers, people who can work with you to see what you cannot see until you can see it for yourself, helping you see, maybe this is a little bit more now, designing, a little bit more of this for now is what I'm sensing in your field. Your energy would benefit from this type of yada yada. So for a period of my life, I was incapable of really sensing the constant, it makes me think of another analogy or metaphor that Ashtanga yoga. It's like constantly swimming, constant forward movement, a subtle application of energy. And it's like, it's not exhausting. It's nice, because if you're slowly kind of always pushing forward, there's no rush, there's no hurry, there's intention, and there's kind of a peacefulness in knowing that you can't escape that. You're always here, processing, exerting, and emanating energy as a human being. That's what you've chosen to do. That is this reality. And you're going to be doing it no matter what. And you might as well do it from a controlled state of peace and intention than a waffly state of anxiety and doubt. And I know it's so much easier said than done, but that's why, and those emotions, by the way, are using up a lot of energy. Yeah, to that point, it can be really beneficial, even if you do have a reason to worry or doubt, whatever the real factors of your life may be at any given time, just to hand it over to the universe, like cut it. That's another one of my tattoos, these little golden scissors that can just do anything in my mind. If there's too much going on, I see it as a flurry of colorful ribbons, and the little scissors just come in and go snip, 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 and they all kind of fall to the ground in a very poetic, beautiful movement, and then there is clarity left behind. And think of the energy of a big, clear blue sky. It can be useful, to just give yourself the peace of mind. And people, I would say, doubt this tactic because it's like, but that doesn't fix my problem. And it's like, well, it does give your vibration a boost. If you can actually for a minute forget your worries or concerns and go to this place of comforting yourself, and you're not dropping the ball on addressing those concerns. If you need to see it as a thing, you physically hand it over to your spirit guides, the angels. That's who I hand it to, or just the universe, or your higher self, whatever comparison or way of thinking most resonates with you. And you know that it's still held, it's still somewhere. There is still an acknowledgement of these things in your life that need to be worked on or resolved, and that's okay. You don't have to be the one shining the light on it all the time, because then your energy is always going into that one direction. But if you can give yourself the time and the space to experience a little boost in your vibration via, it's almost like fake it till you make it. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna be peaceful now. That stuff is still there, but it's not mine right now. Nothing else matters. I choose peace and calm. And again, going back to the trust in what we cannot see. I'm choosing now to trust that things will work out for me, because that's a lot more powerful than we think it is, because the frequency of that thought is measurable, and it's a higher vibrational frequency than continuing to sit with the doubt. And because it's a higher vibrational frequency, it's a more attractive frequency to other frequencies like it, which is the frequency of solutions or a repaired situation. And this is directly related to the Einstein quote that is forever my favorite, that is, we cannot look in the same direction that we were looking when a problem was created in order to solve it. And that's all about frequency. That's all about frequency. Another Einstein quote is, not verbatim, but those of us who believe in physics know that this thing that we call time and space is just an ever-present illusion. And if that's true, then everything that will ever happen has already happened. Everything that has happened to you in the past is kind of still happening. But if you can not activate, this is what people mean when they say let go of the past and move on. It's the stage again of the things on the stage that are the influencing factors over your ego and your personality, your conditioning, that you let still dictate the undercurrent of your behavior. If you can truly make peace with it and not activate the past, not give it space in your consciousness, which is a subconscious thing that we do. I'm not saying you're always reacting based off of how you felt when you were 11, but you might be, and you might not know it because of something that happened. And it's very interesting when we do different types of intentional healing, how we realize that I would say probably 100% of people, just because this is the human brain's capacity, have blocked out things from their past. And our memory is very selective and very curated. And a lot of that, again, is the brain, the psyche, desiring to protect itself. This also links up with what I was talking about the soft spaghetti cave, where it's this visual of this, it's basically heart chakra space, or almost solar plexus, of we have this tangled mess inside of us, and in order to untangle it, we have to confront what it is, and we kind of have to go into that place where we started putting things. And I like that it's bodily, because then it helps bring in the importance of the body in emotional healing, spiritual healing. It's all about the body because we carry these memories in the cellular memory of our DNA. Which also brings up the point that a lot of the healing is your DNA coming from your lineage, your bloodline, your ancestors. You inherit certain types of, not only just your physical attributes and genomes or whatever they're called, phytotype, long-standing belief systems and pain. So about space and time being illusory. So if space and time is illusory, think about how absolutely, okay, and I know that's hard to grasp, so think about it this way. Where I'm at right now, if I'm feeling a certain way, my vibration is high and clear, I am aiming onto a high timeline that I'm envisioning for myself, and it's loaded with opportunities and wonderful moments and feelings that I want to have, that I'm designing for myself, and I want it to come about in all these ways. I'm manifesting this. That's a highest timeline. I'm going for that because I believe that it's possible. And what is true, in my opinion, is that all of the timelines are possible. So then I have a bad moment, and that's okay, and I'm not feeling so great, and I'm worrisome, and I'm pessimistic, and I'm like, maybe it's not going to work out the way that I want it to. Then I'm kind of trajectorying off onto a lower timeline. So a lot of my work and words that I use are like, I am aligned with my highest timeline. I am confident that I am aligning with my highest timeline. Different affirmations of the like, because it makes me think of a straight line and then a waffly path going all around the line. The line is going up, but spiral ascension again. Yeah. I don't know if the video is going to pick this up. That plane trail, it's a straight line. That plane's going somewhere, but it goes kind of up and down and around, and the clouds that are fuzzying out and dispersing around the plane trail are a little bit like that. And that's what our emotions do. So consistency with manifestation is everything. And that is why when you think about the power of letting your worries go for just a minute, it's just so incredibly powerful. Because if you feel like you're unstoppable and you can do anything, not in a manic way, but in a empowered way, then you can align with that highest timeline. The more you do that, the higher your trajectory will go, and the less waffleation, that's a good word, waffleation around the course there will be. And speaking for myself, I think that waffleation can be considered bipolar in some cases. But if I'm being honest, I think bipolar is not if I'm being honest, this is a fact. Bipolar is a huge category. Tons of people with very different lives and situations and experiences are diagnosed with that, as if it's all one thing. And I will say that we have over 400 different kinds of diagnoses in the United States, whereas in other countries, maybe third world countries or less evolved, civilized countries, there's just one name for that, and it's treated by the shaman, and those people get better. We don't, they don't have, again, the power of words. If you have so many different labels to say that something is unwell or sick, then it creates, through creative, visualization and making real, making tangible, the possibility for there to be so many different things wrong instead of one thing wrong and then we find the solution. It's like, now you live with this way that you're not quite right, and it doesn't there's no cure, but we can manage it this way. That affects people. And that is what a lot of Americans are dealing with, or, people around the world. I don't know why I say Americans. Well, America probably has the reputation for the most pill abusive civilization. Beautiful little red-tailed hawk. And again, I think that this is almost the fear-mongering tactic that is intentionally kind of suppressing people's potential to evolve their consciousness, because when you start living a life where that's the reality, it's like, well, I have a mental illness, or I take these medications to help me, and I don't ever want to make it sound like that medications aren't useful, or that's not a good way to address certain problems, because everybody's situation and mind and lives are so different, and there are benefits, but I'm talking just about the overall picture and how I view it. It can become this scapegoat where we don't see the possibility, no fault of our own, but how this whole system is designed. We don't see the possibility to bypass it because we're told that there's no cure for something, or it's something that is managed over time, and that is misleading. So not only are you paying money to buy medications that are not even proven to, well, yeah, they're proven to do one thing, but maybe they're proven to do other things that we don't know about, or, whatever. These medications, I can say for a fact that when I was on medications, I didn't feel intelligent anymore. I could not think the way that I like to think, the way that stimulates me and makes me feel like I just got goosebumps, the way that makes me feel alive, the way that my brain was designed to discover. That was taken from me when I was on medications. So I wasn't going all around the line, and I wasn't having deep deeps and high highs, but that was my worst side effect. And I do believe that a lot of people who take medications experience some type of trade-in, and maybe they don't have the option to not take them, and that is tragic. And so I would softly propose the replacement of these things over time in our society with an authentic understanding of why we are the way we are, and then kind of an unwinding through this dual approach, faith and science, the faith and the science of our existence, helping us live a more authentic life, aligned with source and our highest vibration, and therefore aligned with a higher power that lives within all of us, because we are all one and we are all connected. I'm gonna cry. I do believe that we are all going through the awakening together at different speeds. Some people don't know or care. Some people are curious but don't know how. And some people are actively doing this work, and it's all very exciting. And I believe that the forces that I've mentioned are like, the factors of this big old world that, may or may not be governed correctly, or by entities that don't necessarily want to see this love and light because of the power factor, the ego, and the money involved. Very, very real factor on a global scale. They have, in my opinion, and based off the interviews that I've watched with Emery Smith, which I really enjoy and believe in, technologies that can kind of jump up to this highest level of consciousness, and they're very aware that this is a possibility. And you don't need all of these high-tech inventions to elevate your consciousness. I think they will be available one day, and I heard it said somewhere, Anais Szabo, I want to tag her if she said this. It might have been Quantum Cassie, but I'll tag them both just in case. Said that we're gonna start to see more of like a pitch over the next few years of like technologies or ways that we can kind of hop into this higher vibration and stuff with who knows what. Could be an app where you scan your thing and it activates it. But it's very important to know and remember that all of this comes from within, and there's no reason to, it's so beautiful, because the solution costs no money, and it's available to everybody at any point in time. It's just about intention and willingness, and so I think spreading the right information. And yeah, Age of Aquarius, it's all about going within instead of the Age of Capricorn, which is about getting information from the outside. And I do believe that the higher upper echelons that are from a more maybe ego-based agenda, greed, power hungry, will try to kind of call upon the older modality, the age of Capricorn, like, come here, we have the answer. But I think if anybody says that to you, it's ego-based. I think a lot of people right now, the people that I follow, empower me because they say, this is how I feel, and if it resonates with you, then it helps you too. And that's all that anybody can ever do. Nobody can tell you how to do things, because I mean, also the way that spirit comes through and your intuition guides you is 100% a blueprint, a thumbprint, unique to you, and it's never going to be like someone else's. And I think we grow the most from having the right inspiration from a variety of sources, synthesizing it and letting it be your North Star through your intuition. Your intuition is your North Star, but kind of accumulating a knowledge from all the sources that inspire you and letting that be your truth. Because then if you think about it, like there are popular sources or things like, I don't know, I'm thinking of Joe Rogan. I know a lot of people like him. Honestly, I've never listened to something that he said, but I probably should. So there are popular inspirational things, but I don't think any one person has the same collection of inspiration, and that's beautiful. Like, there's not another person who's read all the same books as you, had all the same experiences and feelings, and looks up to the same people that you do, because that's your way. So everybody's way is valid. Time for me to go. Have a good day. And you too.